to extend information protection and access control down to the data element level from a technical perspective. We're not there yet, but nonetheless, we have at least gone as far as getting high-level recognition of the importance of getting to that level of granularity and moving beyond simply keeping the bad guys out by any number of layers of the perimeter might get smaller and smaller, but any number of layers will still perimeter defense. Let's see, at the strategic level, again, we are very definitely in the business of trying to align information protection to that first slide, cut the red tape and better serve veterans. However, I would say until we get ourselves down to attribute-based access control at the data element level, this alignment to mission process is still difficult. In many ways, without that control at the data level, by controlling access to the network, or controlling access to the application, and setting your timeout parameters so your screen goes blank and all that kind of stuff, most perimeter defense activities today actually obstruct mission accomplishment rather than facilitate mission accomplishment. By the time we get down to attribute-based access control at the data element level, however, the same controls that are either assuring access to the correct data or preventing access to the incorrect data are the same controls that can facilitate data delivery in concert with and compatible with workflow. So getting down to attribute-based access control at the data level is extremely important to actually get that alignment to mission process. So at that point, information protection will actually be enhancing workflow. Today, it's at best, you can minimize the obstruction of workflow. That's about the best you can do. And same, I think, just by training and enhancing the skills of staff throughout the department, particularly the OIT staff, and we now all have under our control. We can now hopefully strengthen skills rather than strengthening numbers. So rather than going back and saying we need more people, what we are about now is trying to make the people we have smarter rather than going back and asking for more people. And to that end, I guess, before I go on to the data thing, we do have a process asset library. Brian mentioned title. When OIT was first consolidated in the 2006 timeframe, we had an external consultant that used IBM, that used IDLE as a foundation of recommendations to us. The processes by which OIT operates are divided into 36 top-level processes. Those top-level processes are all being put into our process asset library called ProPath. That's our name for it. That process asset library is the foundation for how OIT operates itself. We started off with product development. We're now moving into both CDIC and operations and engineering. We go through waves of those 36. We're on the first wave was product development. We're on the third wave now, which pulls in a lot of CDIC, operations, and engineering of those 36 processes. With this next wave of process standardization across the department, I'd say we're probably going to get ourselves close to halfway through that initial list of 36. That process asset library also constitutes the basis of all of our training material for our 7,000 employees. So all courseware content is derived from that process asset library. So we also are, by virtue of training our staff, in addition to whenever an individual program manager needs to reference that library, over above that to say what artifacts I need for my project. In addition to that, all of our courseware for training program managers, training developers, training engineer, for training all 7,000 people, all courseware also comes from the content of that process asset library. Next is the data reference model layer. That's where there's a fair amount of interaction between us and our customers, VHA, via cemeteries, on understanding the content of what are the real semantics and semantic harmonization issues that have to be dealt with for the purpose of mission accomplishment. A lot of work has gone on there, but now between VA and DoD with respect to the electronic health record, the joint electronic health record between both departments as well. There's a governance structure on top of all that. I also happen to be the executive sponsor for the data team, and we had a very strong team with representatives on it from both VA and DoD to come up with On the clinical side, what we call the Common Information Interoperability Framework. I assume you'll be hearing more of that over the next weeks and months as DoD and VA push that subject forward. Both secretaries have certainly heard a lot about it. At the application layer, I think we talked about again. We'll talk about access control to the application layer. But in addition to that, given the collaborative mechanisms that were evolved across the department, across the internal to VA, one of the most important ones being integrated product teams, IPTs. We now have the requisite office representation and expertise represented on an IPT for every project to address whatever aspect of development needs to be addressed for every project, cybersecurity included. So they are represented on every IPT, and by so doing, our intent is to build in the cybersecurity protections that are required to meet standards as products are being developed. I did hear the word compliance earlier today. I would say compliance is a word you will rarely hear. I won't say never, but you will rarely hear the word compliance with respect to enterprise architecture at the VA. The reason being, we don't view this as a police force activity. We don't view enterprise architecture as an after the fact, I got you. So we hope there's no test at the end to validate that anyone's compliant with anything. What we hope is, and our intent is to have all that requisite expertise represented on every IPT for every project, so enterprise architecture information is used properly, prospectively, and proactively over the full SDLC for whatever project or product one has in mind. So after the fact reviews to determine compliance is something we hope would be completely unnecessary. Our program management accountability framework, PMAS, has two major features to it. One is that every project has to deliver something that paints a screen, and so that an end user can say, yes, I like it in less than 6 months. So you can pretty much equate 6-month iterative development, PMAS, and agile development as all kind of falling into the same soup. The second is every project must have an IPT. If your project plan doesn't show you can deliver in 6 months, you have no project. If your project plan doesn't show that you have been able to properly populate and staff an IPT, you have no project. So presumably we're building in collaboration of all the requisite skills down at the project level, not just at the top level where DASs and DCIOs get together and talk out nicely to each other, but all the way down where the rubber meets the road. Next, we have at the technology level. I think I already talked about the technical reference model, the TRM, the single architecture engineering review board for the VA. So again, I think by those mechanisms, again, by agreement of all the DASs and DCIOs in OIT, that they wanted a single architecture engineering review board. My view is that this is, since this is by their request, the customer's request, this is going to be something that they will actively participate in and get full value out of, since it is they themselves who wanted to go to a single one-person system, them all running their own. I think that's a level of erudition. It's very important, and we intend to capitalize on the department and our doing. Let's see here. Continuous monitoring, but the continuous monitoring here that we're going to talk about is really tool-based, and you'll see that in a minute here. So this is just simply to say some of the steps, some of the steps that we have gone through, really starting, I think, probably as far back as, 2007, with respect to standing up our security architecture for the VA. I might say also, interestingly enough, the most robust part of the enterprise architecture at the VA is the cybersecurity architecture. If you look at the artifacts, the level of engagement of people with us to get it done,